are getting close to our 10th week here. I know that we have our numbers kind of off when you look at it, but I'm going to start putting these as headers with the titles. The ones that we just finished, we're talking about working on our game, and that's coming out right after midterm. Right after the midterm week, you'll get working on your game. And so that's going to be previous to what we're talking on today, so you possibly have already seen working on your game. So as we add on technicalities, which means how to keep score, how to do a better job on keeping score, making sure that we know what we're doing on rules and regulations. We will have another quiz that talks about do's and don'ts or etiquette. It's a really easy quiz. I mean, just really easy. It talks about just really different odds and ends, things that you would think would be common sense things. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today, since it's just me and we're really not doing a lot of play into action, I'm just showing you about it. These are things that are having to do with the excuse me, I can't even say that word now, I've already said it twice. Intricacies of the game, which means the technical parts of it. I've set up, which is going to be a little hard to see, but I've set up one tennis ball can right on the center service mark. And then I've set up some balls right in the corners of the service area and right in the center service area. We have a little bit of wind today, so some of our stuff might be moving around, but we're still going to go through it. We talked about warming up. I want you to make sure when you do the warm-up process that you're doing it almost as if you're getting ready to play the game. One of the little tips that I keep getting all the time is that if you have a very purposeful warm-up, you will have a perfect workout, which just means if you warm up correctly and you warm up for the reason why it's there, that when you get ready to actually perform, whether it's a workout or a match or a game, you're going to do much better than if you just come out and you play like you're playing at it. Now, this is nothing to take away from recreational tennis, nothing whatsoever. Meaning, if I want to come out here and Shay and I decide that we want to play a hybrid of tennis, and then who can hit the ball the longest, or who can hit the ball the shortest, or who can hit the ball behind their back or between their legs, then yes, that is fun to do. If you make a game out of it and say, hey, it has to bounce 2 times before you hit it back over the court, then that's a fun way to do it too. If it's only hitting the lines, or if it's only hitting halfway in the court, kind of like what Jane and I've done before, go for those. Those things are so much fun to do that you need to incorporate those in your tennis. Because when you throw out those things like that, seeing if you can just only hit a certain spot. Say I put my bag right over here, and you can't see it, but I'm going to put this little, put down one of my cans down right here. Say this is going to be the spot. If you hit this spot right here and you hit it, then you win the game. It doesn't matter how many points you've won, you automatically win the game. It's like an all or nothing. Some of the people call it the money ball when they're looking for games like that. This is the money ball. No matter how many points that you win, that if you are behind by 3 points and you're going to lose, or if you're behind by three games in the set and you're going to lose, if you hit that can of balls, you win everything. It's like an all or nothing. It's like the double down thing. So those are fun things to do. Just picking something out, picking out random places, because then what happens is everybody tries to hit that shot, whether it's from a ground stroke, whether it's from a lob, whether it's from a volley, for a serve. Every time you play, you try to hit that shot. So I just want you to know that there's a lot of fun things out there that you can do with the game of tennis besides actually following the rules for match play. Now, having said that, I've got this can of balls right here specifically because I want you to be very aware when you stand back and practice your serves that you are practicing correctly. Sometimes people get back and they get so far away that they almost walk into it. I'm almost going to be out of screen here, but they walk into the court. They get ready to toss it up and then they walk into the court and then they hit it. Well, now they've already foot faulted, okay? So they stand really far back because they walk into it. Some people crowd it so close on that line. I mean, it's almost, you can see their shoelace touch it. And again, you can't be on any part of that line. So that would be a foot fault. Now, good and bad side of this is a foot fault cannot actually be called against you unless you're playing a match with linesmen. So if I'm out here playing, Shane's on the other side. Shane's going to see me foot fault. I can't look down and see my own feet, but Shane can see that I foot faulted. And Shane can be upset about it and say, "You foot faulted, that's not fair." And I could go, "Well, I'm sorry, bummer." But again, just because he sees it and calls it, I can't lose a point on it because it just doesn't work that way. Foot faults are only called by professionals. But that is a rule. That is a rule that if you get on the line, you're going to lose a point on it. You're going to lose that serve. You're going to have to lose the second serve after that. You're going to have to take one. So I know that I foot fault at times when I get tired. I get tired and I drop my arm and I come down and I have a tendency to step and then hit instead of hit and then step. So I know that. So I try really hard to make sure that I do not foot fault. Okay, another thing that people do, here's the center service mark. They crowd too close to the center service mark. You cannot be that close to it, especially in singles. You have to be on one side or the other. So if it's the left side, I'm on the left side of it to hit cross court. The right side, it's the right side to hit cross court. So that's a really important thing to remember. There are certain things that you can call, and there's certain things that your opponent can call, okay? Same thing if the ball bounces twice. Say the ball comes over the net, and I think that I got it before it bounced twice, because it can only bounce one time. It can only bounce one time. I am the only person that can call that. Now, again, Shane may be on the other side over there, and Shane can see that I did not get it on two bounces. He just knows that I didn't get it. He may be upset about it and he may want to say something, but that's not his call. He can't make that call. So remember that. Be honest and do that. I mean, I'm not saying I've never made a mistake, but you know when you don't quite get the ball, you don't quite get a double fault, you don't got to do a double bounce is what I'm trying to say, that you know that. That's something, again, that the opponent can't call it. Now, something that the opponent can call, say I'm hitting the ball and I hit it. And then after I hit it and it goes over the net on the other side, I go, "Ah, my gosh," I go like that because I didn't maybe like where it went or something. That Shane can call because it's interference. I have caused a disruption, or I've disturbed him, or I've taken away from his concentration because I have made that sound or whatever when it's on his side of the court. So he maybe think I may be saying something else to him. Now I can make a sound on my side of the court. Not that I want to make sounds, but I could. That's why grunting is okay and things of that sort. I can do that because the ball's on my side of the court. It's up to me to hit it. But once it goes over the net and it's Shane's ball to hit, I'm not supposed to say anything because that is a disturbance. That is something that takes his concentration off. It's almost like a deliberate chant or deliberately something to make him not pay attention. So that's something that's unfair to do. Not only is it very unsportsmanlike, but it's also unfair. It's one of the rules of conduct that you can't do. Another thing that we have a lot of problems with is where the ball's hit. Now I've got a ball right here, and it's going to be very hard for you to see, but it's actually on this center service line. It's traveling down the center service line. It's traveling down the center service line, and it actually is on the intersection of the center service line and both service courts. It's actually at that intersection. It's like a dead end, and you have to go right or left. It is right there. That ball is good whether it's being served to the right side or the left side. It's good either way because it is touching a portion of the line. Now say, for instance, I can do this right here. Say it is 3/4 of the way into the right service box. 3/4 of the way. Not a quarter, a half, 3/4 of the way, but a quarter of it is still touching that line. It's still good. Even if it's in the wrong service box, the majority of the ball, a portion of it is touching the line. That's a really important thing. People just go, "Oh, no, that can't count on a serve." That's huge. And so what happens is, again, I'm serving to Shane. Shane's going to say, "No, it was wide. You know, I want to just bash him over the head." But it caught a portion of the line. So any portion, even if it's the outside portion, still counts. I've got another ball if you're going to make an accurate call, you need to be in line with the ball. For instance, I need to be over in this part of the court so that I can be seeing down that line to make that call. It is your job as a player to be where you're supposed to be to make a good call. And if you can't make a call that you know is 100%, then you need to go with it's good. This is what it says in the rule book. If you are not positive the ball is out, clearly out, I think it uses the words clearly out, no question, then the ball has to be called as good. If you have a discussion with someone and you're not sure if it's good or not, in a match, it has to be played as good. Now I'm going to go back to me and Shane playing again, and we're out here playing for fun. And he goes, well, I think it was out. What do you think? And I think, well, no, I think it caught the line. Then because Shane and I are playing out here for fun, then what we would do is we would just play it again. Because neither one of us is positive. Now if I'm playing, Shane and I are playing in a match, a league match or something this sort, something that counts, and Shane says, well, then we have to go with the fact that it was good, because those are specific rules and they're designed for that specific purpose. So I've set up stuff around that shows you these are important calls to make. And the last one that is super important is anything that hits the baseline. You would have to be behind the ball, and still have time to see it hit. You can't be standing this close to the baseline. You cannot be standing this close, and as it bounces, have enough time to look down, look up, and see what happens. It's very hard to do that. Now, if you're to the side of the ball, and it's out, and you're going to the side of it, you have a much better job of seeing that. It's the same thing if someone lobs over your head. I'm here in the court, I'm going forward, they lob over my head. I've got to make sure that I am off center a little bit to call that lob because I don't actually see it land. So again, I keep going over those things. Those things are really, really particular that you want to play with right there. You want to make sure that you're all on the same page. And I also like it to where when you decide with each other what you're going to do, what you're going to make count. We have something that's called FBI. F as in Frank, B as in ball, I as in Indian. I don't care. Anything you want to come up with. Those called FBI, and that stands for first ball in. That means to save time and more for fun, the first serve you throw up that goes in, that starts off play. That starts off the game. So that's another way to have a recreational game that doesn't put so much pressure on your serve. But remember what we said before, 50% of your points are from serving and 50% are your points for returning. So if I was coming out to play for fun with somebody, I probably would want to, part of that time, work on my serves and returns so that I know that when I got into a play situation, I would be able to get the balls into play and to return them back. And then you might alternate with the days you come out to play and you do just rally stuff. Who can keep the ball and play the longest? Who can keep the ball and play the longest with just forehands, ground strokes? Who can keep it and play the longest just hitting a backhand? How about just hitting volleys? That means the ball never bounces. Shane and I, in one of the videos that you got, Peter and I volleyed, gosh, you remember, was it like 35 times or something? We hit the ball back and forth and volleyed without the ball dropping. So you can do games like that, and those are a lot of fun to do, and then they help your real game. So we've explored about making good shots, about making good calls. We've talked about the lines and how important they are. And it's just as important playing doubles, which is using the alleys or the sidelines, as it is what we're doing in here. We've also talked about uses of the court for the service area, the service boxes, how so important it is to make sure that we have good line calls on the service boxes. The corners are usually the worst when you get in. Anything that bisects a corner, you've got the corner here, the center service bar. You've got a corner out over there. Sometimes people will bring out little dots or cones and set out on different places in the court so that you can see how you get away from no man's land or no person's land, how you get away from this area so that you're not always setting someone up or putting something at somebody's feet. So those are things that we also want to go over as you're doing that. Make sure you understand the etiquette about when you come out and play with someone. Who brings the balls, which would be nice not to have old balls all the time, making sure that the balls do have some bounce in them, making sure that you have a number of balls to play with so that if you lose one, that you've always got at least maybe a can to a person to play with. We're not quite as many restrictions now with COVID as before. There, for the first 6 months we were open, you only played with your can of balls and you only touched your balls like I did just then. You picked them up with your feet or you popped them up with your racket, something like that, and that just kept that to a minimum as far as utilizing someone else's balls as far as that went. You can see that most places have benches set up so you can still keep yourself a little social distancing, and you can also keep your stuff that you drink or anything of that sort also. We're going to take just a little bit of a pause because I'm going to move up to the net. We're going to talk about some stuff at the net. So Shane's going to move the camera up to the net. So think about all those things I mentioned because I will be asking about those things as we go along. So it's kind of like do's and don'ts, but not really. It's kind of like about informational rules, but it's not really. So we'll come up with something that puts all these practical stuff that you maybe never think of happening that might happen. So we're going to explore some stuff towards the net. So I'll see you in just a few seconds by the net. And we're back. So we've moved from the back of the court. So it's maybe the back 2/3 of the court to front of the court to the net. And just talking about a couple little things on the net. When the served ball hits the top of the tape, which is what this is. This white part is the tape. Hits the top of the tape. That's called a lat if it falls correctly into the box. It's a lat if it falls correctly into the box. If it hits the tape and it falls back into your service box where you're serving from, then it's going to be a fault. It's not going to count. Now I can hit the tape, dance around on the tape, pop up on the tape, and then fall over. It doesn't matter. But once it hits the tape, it's only a lat serve if it falls correctly in the box, as if it didn't hit. Now, this is called net court, when something is assisted by the net court. So forget about the serve right now. We'll come back to that. Say you're playing a rally. It hits the tape, and you have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe if they had a lot of top spin and it hits the tape, it'll drive it up and over. Maybe if they have a really flat ball that comes in and hits the tape and it'll bounce back. It won't climb up the tape. So that is a net court that caused someone to lose a serve. Or a net court that caused someone, I said lose a serve and I meant lose a point. Or it can hit the net and fall in play, and that person just won the point because it hit the net. And there's no way someone can get that ball when it drops over. So it's not like you can practice your net courts. It's not like you can practice any of that. It just happens. It's very frustrating when it happens. I say that obviously because I've had that happen to me a lot of times. It's very frustrating for someone to continually hit the net court. But what I'm leading up to, when it hits the net, the first thing we automatically do is rock back because we assume it's not going to come over because it's hit the tape. When what we want to do is we want to keep running as if the ball is going to make it. In our mind, every ball that's hit is going to be a good ball. Every ball that's hit, we need to make up that is going to be ours. And that's especially true in doubles. You've got two people. So if my partner's in front of me and they go out and it looks like they're going to take the volley and they're going to hit it, and then I'm just back here behind them kind of doing this, and they miss it, if I'm not ready, then I can't help my partner out. So even though my partner's doing this, I'm still behind him doing this. I'm still behind him doing this, being ready just in case my partner misses on this other side, he plays, it hits the tape, it bounces up. I need to already be running. I should have thought in my mind, as soon as Shane hit that, it was coming over in this direction. It's going to come over the net so that I'm ready. Now, granted, I'm not going to get to all of them when they hit the tape, but I'm going to get to a lot more of them if I'm ready, just in case. I'd rather be ready for a shot that did not make it than to know that I could have if I stopped running or stopped trying to get there. And the same thing applies on out balls. You just don't know the number of times someone says, well, I thought it was going to be out, so I didn't get ready for it. And then it wasn't out. Today's a good example. The wind has gotten up a little bit, so it's holding it back on one side, and the other side is pushing it out. So here I am. I watch the ball come. It obviously looks like it's going to be long up there, and then the wind catches it, and it dies, and it falls in, and I'm not ready. So those are circumstances that you could avoid at least some of the time by always being ready to hit another ball. That's what you want to think about. So when someone asks me what a lat is or a net ball, a lat is when it hits the tape or the net cord, which is this white, and falls into the court correctly, then you get to serve again. If it's the first serve, obviously you still get two. If it's the second serve, you get just the second serve again. Okay, so those are all the rules as far as that goes. Now, it could come over. This is even weirder. Say your serve comes over, and it hits the net cord out here. Do you see how this is outside the service box? Okay, it hits the net cord out here, but then what happens? It falls into the box, the correct box. But it actually hit the tape right here. Shane's serving from back there behind the camera. He's serving over here cross court to get into this box right here. And he serves really wide. So obviously it looks like it's not going to count. It hits this tape right here and it dribbles over and falls into the court. He still gets to do that again because it landed in the correct court. We all say, no, it landed in the correct court. It doesn't matter that it hit the tape over here. There's no rules about hitting the tape over here. So it has to land in the correct box. Now, some of the professional tennis that's played, team tennis, what they've done is they've eliminated second serves so that time goes quicker. They don't do second serves. This is some college tennis played at different colleges. They've eliminated second serves. So if it hits the tape and falls over, that person still has to return it. So it could hit the tape and go over like a good serve. It could hit the tape and drop right here. It could hit the tape and jump up and go. They still have to return it as a good serve. So that means this person's still rewarded in a way on a serve. So think about those kind of things. Be ready. Those aren't rules, meaning that there aren't rules of technically our game, but there are things that you play otherwise. But this is a rule. If it hit the flood court over here and went in, it's going to count. Another rule is, this is part of the structure of the court. This post is part of the structure of the court. Now, if there's something up above it, it's not part of it. But this is structure of the court. Let's go back to the same thing. If it hits this post and goes into play, wow, that was something fancy. I'm sure somebody somewhere has done that, but that is part of the structure of the court. Now, it can hit the fence over there that you can't see because that's not part of the net in our court. Okay, now, I don't know how wide you can see, but say Shane hit me a ball and it traveled at an angle like this out here. So I have to go outside the confines of the court to get it. I have to go past the doubles line and out into the green area that is out. Now I can hit the ball out there and it can pass on the outside of this post right here. The outside of it, not above it, outside of it. And if it lands correctly into the court, then it's good. Now the odds of that happening are going to be really low because there's not going to be probably enough room over here to go get it. But say he angled it right here, like like here, it bounced here and went here. Conceivably, I could run up over there and catch it at the angle. It's going to be unusual, but I could do that. And have a little slice on it, and it would come around. Those are unusual things that happen. Okay, now, last week, Shane and I were out here to videotape, and it was so windy the ball didn't even go forward. And then when someone hit it the other way, it went over the fence. So we didn't videotape last week because of that. But that comes to another thing that happens. Shane hit the ball, and it went over. Here it is. It goes over, and I'm running up to get it. But because it's so windy, and he mishit it, and it has so much spin on it, backspin, it came back over the net before I could get there. I'm really unhappy with him because this has happened. He didn't do it on purpose. He didn't know it was going to be that windy. He didn't know that he had that much backspin. But when he hit it and it bounced over the net, it bounced back. Now, if I'm fast enough and I had already started running, this is the only time I can reach over the net and touch the ball. Because I get to attempt to hit it. But I've got to reach over and hit it before it bounces another time. I can do that. So Shane hit a ball that went from here, backspin to here. I was on that side running to get it. I could not get it here, so I reached over the net and tapped it. I don't have to do anything else. I just have to touch it. So it looks as if I had hit it over the net. Now Shane is obviously not going to get it because he started this whole thing. He started with the wind in the backswing. But I'm going to get it, but I have to be able to get all the way up here and over. Now the only time I have ever successfully done this and gotten credit for it was when I was playing doubles one time. And I was already up at the net, which a net person is close to the net in doubles play. That's the only reason why I got it. And someone hit a short ball that did that, and I was already here close to the net, and I actually knew the rule. So that's the only reason why I ever got it. Now, it's happened to me before where I've not been able to get it. So that's another thing you want to think about. Those are unusual things that happen, and you look back and say, what would that be? What would the call be? What would be if the lob came up and it came and hit somebody on the shoulder? They didn't hit it, but it hit them. Well, you touched the ball's touched you, you lose the point. So it can't touch you. What if I accidentally hit my partner with the ball? Then you lose the point. What if the ball, when it's being served, accidentally hits your racket? So play like this is the back of the service box and I'm here waiting. And Shane serves to me and it hits my racket. I lose the point. So there's a lot of little things like that when you're playing a game that counts that you want to pay attention to because you may not know the rule. You need to look it up or you would lose it. Say I served on the wrong side. Say I was supposed to serve on the right side instead of the left side and I served and that point was 1. Okay, as soon as you know you served on the wrong side, you go back and get the correct side, but you're still going to lose that point. But you have to know where you're at as soon as you identify it. Say I'm standing in the wrong place to serve. Say I serve out of order. Those are all things that we talk about that happen if you're in a match. You have to be responsible for it. Now, if someone says to you, hey, by the way, you're on the wrong side, then you can move over and take care of it. And the other rule that we've talked about, too, is that if you cannot remember the score, we've said this one before, Shane and I are playing. He thinks he's up 40-15, which means he thinks he has 3 points and I have 1. And I think I'm up 40-15, that I have the 3 points and he only has 1. And we can't remember the points. We stop and we talk about it and we cannot remember the points. Then we have to go back to the only score that we agree on. And that score would be that we both know we have 1 point. We both know it's 15-15. So we have to go back to 15-15 and start all over from there because that's the only score we can agree on. Now for fun, that's a whole different story. But again, know the difference between fun, recreational tennis, and what's happening when you have to go talking about these weird details that can happen. The more fun that you guys can have in your tennis game, the more fun things that you can try and play, the different types of ways that you can place the ball and stuff, those kind of things are going to make your tennis better because you're specifically focusing on trying to do one thing at a time. You're going to find that your game is a lot more fun when you go out and you don't have a lot of restrictions on it when you throw that stuff in every now and then. So if you keep from getting frustrated about your game, then go in on the curious different little factors that we have that make up tennis. Go in on those. Just practice your swing serving. Just practice that. Say, okay, I'm going to serve 3 times today instead of 2 times. Or today I'm going to serve just 1 time, so I got to make it count. I went to a tennis tournament where we bought mulligans, and I don't know if any of you guys play golf or anything, but mulligans are a do-over. I'm going to do it over. So we bought raffle tickets to donate, and we bought mulligans in tennis. So our serves were mulligans. If I got a double fault, then I pulled out my ticket because I bought so many double fault mulligans. So do that with someone you're playing with. Say, okay, double faults, you get 3 serves on a double fault. You get to serve 3 times, or you get a serve here. Do something like that to work on your game and still make it very efficient and very worthwhile. These are all kind of, if you want to just say tips, things that you need to know, whether some of the stuff is legal, some of the stuff is just for fun, some of the different stuff that we have going on. Make sure you're comfortable with parts of the court. You know where it is you need to be for which shots. I'd say that's probably one of the most important things, is knowing what shots you can make from which area of the court that you can make them in. I don't know that you can tell that it's gotten windier just the time that we've been out here, but it's really blowing a lot. The couple that was on the court next to us has already left before it's gone. But I would definitely go out and play in the wind a couple times just to see what happens. What is nice about it is some of you guys that tend to overhit, you're going to like playing in the wind because you're going to get to be on one side where you get to overhit. Then when you get on the other side, you have to work a little bit more on touch and technique because certain shots won't work on the other side, so you have to change your game around. So it becomes a game of strategy. I grew up in a very windy area of the state of New Mexico, very windy. We used to joke it only didn't blow 2 times a year, once in the fall and once in the spring, and the rest of the time it blew. So if you wanted to play golf or tennis, you learned how to play in the wind. And a lot of people played very tricky tennis because they knew how to play in the wind. They knew when to drop shot, they knew when to hit the ball, they knew what to do. And so that's always something very interesting to do. One thing I will tell you not to do, and we already had our bad weather video that we've already put up. One thing I will tell you not to do is do not play when it's wet or it's raining. Even though I'm sure you won't melt because it probably won't be that cold. The lines are enormously slick right here. Those lines are super slick because of the paint they use on them. And the texture of this court is not user-friendly. You get ready to stop, it won't stop. You will slide. It will be so easy to have some horrible, horrible accident to do that. And the balls are not all-weather balls. They get too wet, they get too humid, they absorb too much, they get too hard, they don't bounce. So you're not working with anything. And they can damage your rackets by being wet and by the different type of force that comes in on the ball that's too heavy. That's why you don't want to use the different balls or wrong balls to play with your tennis racket, things of that sort. So conditions that you don't want to play, if there's ice obviously on the court, but definitely if the court's wet. And that could even be from it sprinkling too much. You want to make sure the courts are dry enough that you don't want to slip and slide on. So these are tennis tips, what we're doing today. We're going to call these tennis tips. The last one we call working on our game. We're going to call all these tennis tips today. So this is things that I want you to look at for etiquette, sportsmanship, tips for you for playing, things that will help you rule-wise and things of that sort, and just to make it more enjoyable to play in general. So we will see you next week. We're getting set up for our second quiz, which I can hardly wait for you to take that after you did such a good job on midterm. And then before that, we'll be going into singles play, doubles play, mixed doubles play, matches, tournament matches, leagues, and tiebreakers. So all of that will come in towards the end, the last third of our semester. So we'll see you again, and thank you so much. No word of the day, except that if you read this, then you'll know that this is the tip film. So this is a tip video. So if you want to say a word of the day, you can say tips, but you're going to know that this is your tips for play. Catch you later. Bye.